Shalom and welcome to Inside Israel News, your source for unbiased and thorough analysis of Israeli news, politics, and current events in the Middle East. I'm your host, Isaac Kite. Well, I had intended to record, I really had, a supplement in between last week's episode and this week's episode in the hopes that I would be able to spread this out, talk a little more in depth about different things. And I thought, I'll just do it as part of this episode. And then the news has just been exciting and explosive. So much going on. Now I have to cram a whole bunch of stuff into one episode. So here we go. Buckle up, buckle in, strap in. Here we go. This is going to be an exciting adventure of a week. So this week, as the U.S. entered into talks with Iran, aimed primarily at restoring the Obama-era Iran deal, if such a thing can be done, the Israelis attacked the Natanz site and basically set the Iranian nuclear program back 9 weeks. They had power failure. Apparently, there was some kind of an explosion. There was some damage done, and the Iranians are they're in a little trouble. They've been, their timetables have been pushed back. It's caused some harm to their nuclear program. Of course, the Iranians are calling it an act of terrorism. How it's terrorism to prevent a terrorist state from obtaining the world's most powerful weapon, I don't know. But what happened there was a brilliant bit of work by Mossad. Good job. Congratulations to those guys. They're heroes once again, preserving peace, freedom, and security in the world from the world's most dangerous people. Speaking of whom, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, is again reporting that Iran has been violating the Iran deal, Iran's agreements and international commitments. They are stockpiling uranium above the limits set forth for them. So once again, how many times now has the IAEA said that Iran is violating the deal? I've lost count at this point. The point is, the Iranians have never kept to the deal, the Obama-era deal in the first place. They violated it with just flagrant rapidity. And it's a tacit reality at this point. It is the case de facto that Iran is not going to abide by that deal or any other deal now or at any other time in the future. So the Iranians are talking with the Iranians about trying to reestablish the deal is ridiculous. At this point, lifting the Trump-era sanctions would be a huge mistake. At this point, Israeli and many European leaders are saying that even the tough sanctions on Iran haven't worked, and it's time to take perhaps some tougher action. Again, Israel has set them back quite a bit with the Natanz attack, but the question here is, at what point does Iran become dangerous enough and the situation become sufficiently out of control that military action is going to be required in order to prevent Iran from developing this weapon? We don't want things to reach that point, obviously. War is not a good thing. But if it comes, it's going to come because of weakness. It's going to come because the United States in particular is not in a position of strength. And that's the unfortunate reality here. In other news this week, Benny Gantz, former foreign minister and now, I wouldn't say opposition leader, maybe number 2 in opposition. He has a pretty strong place next to Yair Lapid as second largest party in the opposition coalition, opposition group, let's say. There's not really a coalition at this point. Those who are in the anti-Bibi club. So he's in a pretty strong position there. He hosted the Secretary of Defense for the United States, Lloyd Austin, and made a very strong point there that even the opposition is on board with at this point, and that is that any deal with Iran must protect Israel. All right. And I've had a few people ask, what's the big deal here? For several years in the 1940s, the Jewish people faced the very real prospect of extermination. The Nazis controlled Eastern Europe and Central Europe, where the largest number of Jews lived at the time. They had aspirations to control the Middle East and were convincing Arabs to riot and murder Jews. And there was, at least in plan, the Nazis intended to come down through the Caucasus and across the Suez Canal through the Middle East to India, at which point they would have had basically all of the, most of the world's Jews under their control. Jewish people had to live with the fear of annihilation and the very real act of undergoing genocide. The Nazis were trying to eliminate Jews. Well, now a great number of Jews live in Israel. And if Israel is facing the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation, like I did as a child back in the 1980s in the United States, when the Cold War was still on, and there were times in my very early childhood, before I was even aware, say in 1984, when Andropov sat with the nuclear, basically the red button, if you will, the nuclear codes, right next to his hospital bed, ready to fire at a moment's notice during a NATO exercise. There were some moments when the Cold War almost went hot. I mean, we really got close far too many times. And you imagine now a situation where Iran has the bomb and the means to deliver it to Israel. And then Jews, once again, the greatest number of Jews in the world, are going to have to face the very real prospect of annihilation once again. Anytime the Iranians want, they can launch those missiles. Now, Israel has an interceptor, the Arrow missile system they developed with the Indians, Indians. India helped them develop that technology that can intercept ballistic missiles. Will that really prevent Iranian missiles from hitting Israel? I mean, again, those missiles have an accuracy rate. It's difficult to intercept ballistic missiles that are incoming. The projectile at that point, the warhead, is very small, very difficult to hit. It's still a long shot. Chances are some nuclear munition would land in Israel, and therefore, again, Jews would be facing the prospect of annihilation. That is not something that Jewish people should have to live with. That is not something Israelis should have to live with. And not just Israelis, but we're talking about the entire Arab street as well. Okay, not just the Saudis and the emirs in the UAE. We're talking about Arab populations in Abu Dhabi, in Riyadh, in Amman, in Cairo, having to live with the prospect that they themselves could be the victim of nuclear attack if Iran decided to attack all of its enemies at once. This is just not a safe situation. And the Iranians are developing missiles that could reach Europe. They want to be in a situation where they can intimidate and manipulate us by threatening us, as in the United States, by threatening our allies, Israel and the Arabs in the Middle East, in terms of our regional allies, Turkey as well, and also our European allies. Right? We could see mushroom-shaped clouds over Paris and London, and as well as, sadly, Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. And this is just unacceptable. This is not something Israelis should ever have to live with. The Iranians are an extremely just dangerous, fanatical regime. The religious clerics who run Iran believe that they can bring on the end times and bring back a 12th Imam or whatever in some kind of apotheosis if they attack Israel. It's just a very dangerous situation. So this can't be allowed to go. All right, in other news, the U.S. is getting ready to send $250 million. And people said $250 million. Yeah, that's $250 million to the Palestinian Authority. Wow. The U.S. has sent money to the PA before, not in that kind of quantity, obviously. We send money in hopes that it will provide aid, help develop the economy, provide education, that kind of thing. At the end of the day, what we end up paying for is terrorism. Right? They use their curriculum to promote terrorism in the schools. They pay the families of terrorists considerable amounts of money so that people are rewarded for committing acts of murder against Israelis, and they are always building their terror infrastructure. Europe, for example, sent a bunch of concrete to the Gaza Strip to help them build houses. What they built instead were tunnels into Israel. And Netanyahu uncovered that plot, terrible, horrific plot, where they intended to sneak into Israel in Israeli uniforms, military uniforms, and murder large numbers of civilians and kidnap soldiers and civilians alike to take hostage to barter for Hamas prisoners. So this is what ends up happening with that kind of money. So how many Jews are going to die with that quarter of $1 billion? Can't say, but it is really important that the United States realize that these organizations, Fatah, Hamas, these warlords like Abbas and Haniyeh in the Palestinian territories, these are not good people. These are not people we can work with. These are not partners in peace. They are terrorists. And you are only going to defeat them by convincing them to surrender, to lay down their arms, to give up their efforts, and negotiate peace. And they're not going to do that as long as they have any hope or any prayer that they're going to be successful. Anyway, end of rant. Deep breath. Again, people just need to think and what have you. Okay, speaking of our Palestinian friends, the Palestinian Authority is supposed to be having elections in May. And I'm laughing because it's just, it's a joke. No one's even sure those elections are going to take place. President Mahmoud Abbas seems to be convinced he's going to stay president. He is not likely to win, as I mentioned some polls in an earlier episode. It's a ridiculous situation. There are defectors within his Fatah movement, like Mohammed Dalan, who want to run against him. And there's a lot of people who support Barghouti to be president. Of course, he's sitting in an Israeli prison for murder charges for organizing terrorist attacks. And Haniyeh and the Hamas faction want to take over the Palestinian government as well, such as it is, if a government it really is, in fact. So whether these elections will happen, whether the results will be respected, we don't know. So basically, the United States is giving $250 million to a pseudo-government organization that is run by tyrants who are the leaders of terrorist organizations to do God knows what with. So if I sound exasperated, that is because I am. All right, let's have some good news. I guess the Natanz attack is also good news, that as well. Israel and the United Arab Emirates are signing a historic $3 million water tech deal, and that concludes a long negotiation over that. Israel is really a master of water tech, from drip irrigation that they worked on back in the 50s and 60s to efficiency in water piping, noting that you lose a lot of water through a piping system if you have large leaks. And so using software, you can track where those leaks are, fix those big leaks, and then that makes your water system more efficient. And obviously, the Israelis are very good at water conservation, developing various technologies to preserve water. Why? Well, Israel is a desert country, and so all of their water is precious. The Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, is a source of water, HaYarden, the Jordan River, and they desalinate water from the Mediterranean. They recycle water. Everything in Israel they try to use very efficiently, and they're going to sell some of that technology to the UAE because, guess what? The United Arab Emirates is likewise a desert, and therefore they have the same problems. And so they will benefit a great deal from this technology. And so it is good to see this as a result of the historic peace deal between Israel and our Arab brothers in the UAE. So with that, finally, I could come to the political situation when I get back from the break and talk about the negotiations that are going on, because there's some exciting political maneuvering going on now, and we're right in the thick of the coalition negotiations, and what could result in a government or not, we don't know, but that's all kind of likely to break forth in the coming week. So stay tuned. Politics, politics, politics. To quote Mel Brooks, History of the World Part 1. Great movie, good time. So in political news, I'm going to start with just an off-the-wall story that is just too much fun to talk about. A Knesset member named Ofer Kasif, who is Jewish but is a member of Joint List, I'll explain that in a minute, don't let me get ahead of myself, was injured by police during a protest in which he was yelling at the police officers, being aggressive with them. One of them pushed him back a little bit when he charged forward toward them. And then you can see this in a video if you go look to Jerusalem Post or Times of Israel. They've got Israel National News. They've got a video of it. You can go find it and watch it, and it's amusing and entertaining in a way. Anyway, he charges at police officers. They push him back a little bit. He reaches toward one of their masks or faces, in any case, and they take action for their own protection. But of course, he's saying that police beat him and he was brutalized and he was injured because during this protest. It's great stuff, my friends. You cannot make this stuff up. Israeli politics, you gotta love it. So, how does a Jewish person end up in the Joint List? Among the 6 Joint List Knesset members. Well, the Hadash party, Hadash means new in Hebrew, the Hadash party, new or change, I guess you could say, they are originally founded as a Jewish Arab party, a Jewish Arab communist party, basically, aimed at peace. And for the most part, the Jewish members didn't stay in the party. It became very anti-Zionist and pro-Arab and generally not compatible with mainstream Jewish politics in Israel, but there are still a few Jewish members, and apparently Ofer Kasif was able to get into the Knesset list with Hadash. And now he has embarrassed himself in attacking a police officer and got himself all over the news. Well, that's just amusing. So I thought I'd start right there. Israeli politicians are fun. When the cameras are rolling, they're very in each other's face and accusatory and these very strong language and, you're trying to destroy the country. You hate the boer and this kind of thing. But it is kind of funny because as soon as you turn the cameras off in the Knesset, everyone just starts smiling. Hey, how are the kids? How are things? I was down at the theater last night, saw a fun movie. I like this little coffee shop in my neighborhood. I mean, they're just, they're very personable when the cameras are off. But when they're on, they're politicking and they're opportunistic and they're just trying to get their name in the papers. So that's headlines on websites and videos apparently. So that's some excitement. All right. Other politics, coalition talks. Naftali Bennett. Naftali Bennett is now the fulcrum, the point on which the coalition balances. His 7 seats can take Bibi's natural coalition of 52 up to 59 and thus put him within striking distance of the 61-seat majority. Knesset has 120 members. You have to have 61 to have a majority. You must have a majority to sit as a coalition government, and this is thus the struggle to reach that majority. So Naftali Bennett and Bibi Netanyahu have sat down and negotiated, and Bennett's made some public signals. So those negotiations are happening behind closed doors, and different people float different rumors about what's happening. Some of these are confirmed, some of them are denied. The press will run with some wild ideas at times, and it's kind of funny. As I mentioned in last week's episode, they ran some wild story about supposedly Gidon Sa'ar negotiating with Bibi, and Sa'ar and his party are like, hey, wait, no, we're not even talking to them. Don't publish this nonsense. This is tripe. So you get some funny, wild rumors. But Bennett has made some public statements that kind of put him in perspective for where he's going with this coalition. He believes that there should be a right-wing coalition instead of a left-wing coalition, generally speaking, but he's not necessarily committed. Obviously, he's keeping his options open to whatever is best for him. However, he has also indicated that it would be okay for Ra'am to join the coalition. In other words, he's not going to try to take the principled stand that the religious Zionists are in against Ra'am joining the coalition. In other words, Naftali Bennett doesn't want his name floated as the person who is the cause of a 5th election. If a 5th election results, it's going to be someone else's fault. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So this is Bennett maneuvering himself into the best possible position. And in terms of which coalition is best for him and for his constituents, obviously the supporters of his party, Yamina, a lot of them are living in the Shomron and Yehuda, what are called settlements by the international communities, their international press. They're Jewish communities, towns and villages that happen to be beyond some made-up line on a map that was an armistice line in 1949 where parties just stopped fighting. We don't like those lines on maps everywhere else. We looked at the divisions of East and West Germany and like, no, that's horrible. We should reunify Germany. And we still lament the armistice line in Korea that separates North and South. But the international community is steadfast and the press steadfast that green line in Israel, that's hard and solid. That's the real deal. You can't move those lines. Anything that's beyond those lines and up in the hills is a settlement and it's occupied and whatever. Okay. We've heard their baloney for enough. But in any case, a lot of people on the right, and I want to say a little bit more freedom-oriented. If there's a party that has a libertarian bent in Israel, or let's say a small government bent, that is Naftali Bennett. And you could tell with Gideon Sa'ar, with his plan of devolution to local governments, he was trying to get in on some of that sort of small government territory, but not enough to do him much good, since he came in with 6 seats, one short of Yamina. In any case, so Bennett's constituents would be best served by a right coalition. Bennett himself would be best served by being prime minister, and that's kind of the position where he's at. However, if he were prime minister with the left coalition, he wouldn't have much freedom of action. That'd be a coalition that would have to involve Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid party. It would have to involve Meretz, the far left party, the Labour, which is very left, along with right-wing parties like Yisrael Beitenu and more centrist parties like like Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party. So it would be very unwieldy. Any policy decision he would try to take, anything the cabinet would try to do, would break the coalition right away, because he would have no freedom of action. So his best deal really is with Bibi. But he's playing hard to get because he can, and because he can extract better conditions and concessions from Bibi. Now, back during the election, Bibi Netanyahu ruled out the idea that he would do a rotation as prime minister. And likewise, we heard from Yair Lapid that even though he was polling in second place and the largest party out of all the opposition to Bibi, that he would be willing to put his ambitions to be prime minister aside if it meant that they could get Bibi out of office. Now that the election's over, both of those things have gone to the trash can, the trash bin of history. So much for election promises. Yair Lapid is running as the main prime minister candidate against Bibi, and Bibi is now negotiating with Bennett over a rotation in office. Bennett is a pretty strong position. As I mentioned, polls put him in the second place. I mean, if not Bibi, he has the most popular, after Bibi, he's the most popular candidate for prime minister. So he really has a strong position there. He can certainly try to negotiate his way into being Bibi's successor, which I think is his ultimate goal. But there's some back and forth going on over how that's going to go. So Bibi is saying he wants to do the standard rotation. Bibi is in for 2 years, and after that, Bennett will come in for 2 years, right? Bennett is saying he wants to go after 1 year. Now, Bibi will have 1 year in office, then Bennett will have 2 years, then Bibi can have the last year. That's an interesting pitch, but I think what Bennett is pushing for here is he wants a solid promise from Bibi that this is going to happen. After all, Bibi promised that after 6 months within the year, he would transfer power to Benny Gantz in the emergency coalition that was formed last May, and yet that did not happen. Bibi made sure that the budget failed, and he sabotaged that deal so that this election would happen. Well, Naftali Bennett is a more shrewd politician, and he's making sure that he presses the point home. And if Bibi does 2 years and then quits, it also needs to be understood that that's retirement, not just leaving office as prime minister. Bibi needs to go. He's had a lot of time as prime minister. It's time to choose a successor and leave that off to the next generation. Well, we'll see how that goes. Would it be 1 more year of Bibi, maybe 2, and then followed by Bennett, or is Bennett going to go in the middle and Bibi come back for a final year? We'll see. The best deal, I think, at this point is 2 and 2, because that's the precedent that was set in the 1984 election when Israel had a hung parliament, and Shimon Peres and Yitzhak Shamir came to their agreement. Peres for 2 years, followed by Shamir for 2 years. So we'll see. But that's what they're talking about, and I think Bennett is really trying to hold Bibi's feet to the fire about, just how much do I trust you to go forward with this. So let's talk about the other problem. So once Bibi's got Bennett, once he's worked that out with Bennett, and it sounds like they're getting closer and closer to a deal. Usually at this point, if it's going to be sabotaged, they'll already be putting poison pills in parties in the coalition that one party doesn't want, or conditions that one party would find unacceptable. There's not been any of that. So maybe, just maybe, this may happen. The other problem is Bezalel Smotrich, the leader of the religious Zionist party, is absolutely opposed to Ra'am joining the coalition. He is 100% against it. He wants no part of it. And he says they're anti-Zionist and they don't belong in the coalition or in the government. Well, he's entitled to his opinion. So Bibi has done something kind of clever politically that I find amusing, and you may find as well. Bibi is a really shrewd strategist, and this is something that he does very, very well. And that you have to be able to do this in order to be the prime minister in a multi-party proportional system, is maneuver these little nuances and temper tantrums carefully. Okay, so Bezalel Smotrich is a guy who wouldn't even be in the Knesset if it hadn't been for Bibi working behind the scenes to get these far-right parties like Otzma Yehudit, who are really nationalist and hard-right fascist parties, all together so that there's enough support for them that they'd be able to make clear the threshold and earn seats. And they polled around the threshold a couple of times. They did ultimately get to 6 seats. And now, after all that work, Smotrich has got some big ideas, some big plans. He's sitting there thinking about Minister Smotrich. I'm going to be the Minister of Education, or maybe the Interior Minister. Oh, maybe I'll push for a bigger post. I want a bigger piece of the pie. I'm going to be a big shot. And they have those cabinet meetings. He'll be sitting there next to Bibi and Bennett and all of that crowd with the big boys, making the big decisions and all of that kind of thing. So he's got kind of a big head, big plans, big dreams in mind. But he doesn't want Ra'am to join the coalition. Well, Bibi can do the math, and as I've talked about before, I've gone through the math with you guys. All of these parties together, you've got all of the natural coalition parties, Likud, Shas, UTJ, and the religious Zionists, and it's 52 seats. You add Yamina, and it's 59. That's still short of a majority. The only way this happens, the only other party out there to bring in the coalition is Ra'am. It is the Arabs. And that's the only way this is going to work, one way or another. They could either support the coalition from outside the coalition and be a silent partner, you might say, like a limited partnership in business, where they would not sit in the coalition, but they would vote in favor of Bibi in votes of confidence and such, or as a formal member of the coalition where, say, the party leader Mansour Abbas would have a cabinet post. As Smotrich is saying, he doesn't want either of those situations. He doesn't want to have to rely on Ra'am. Well, this is an interesting position for him to stake out, because his obstinacy could sabotage the election and lead to a 5th election. And that's why Naftali Bennett is putting himself in the position where it's not going to be him. If there's a 5th election, it's not going to be Naftali Bennett who's to blame. Right? He's going to, and I'll tell you, after Bibi, if Bibi is unable to form a coalition, say President Rivlin should give Yair Lapid a shot, maybe a Lapid-Bennett type of coalition, Bennett will work with that too. He'll try, probably make a good faith effort. He might put some poison pills in, but he'll probably make a good faith effort at that as well, to the degree that it might be to his benefit. But the point is, he doesn't want to be seen as the one who causes the lack of a coalition. He doesn't want to be the one who causes the election. So that puts a lot of pressure on Smotrich. So Bibi is clever at this, and he maneuvers this very carefully. He goes on, after this statement was made, and during an interview with the press, he said, well, maybe religious Zionists and Ra'am can both support the coalition from outside. They can both be silent partners. They won't be formal coalition members, but their 10 votes collectively would then contribute to the coalition, and they just neither of them would be a formal member. Well, isn't that interesting? So now here's, Bezalel Smotrich. He's got big dreams. He's a big man now. He's in the Knesset. He wants to sit at the table with the big boys, sit at the adult table for the, dinner time. And he thinks he's really made the big time. And Bibi is basically threatening to keep him out of the coalition. saying, I'll keep you out altogether if it's needed in order to put this coalition together. That's not what Smotrich wants to hear. And there's nowhere else for him to go. I mean, unless he himself, through the force of his own personality, could convince Gideon Sa'ar to join the coalition, where Gideon Sa'ar has sworn up and down that he will not join the coalition, campaigned on it, and this kind of thing. So, I mean, it's just not going to happen. Smotrich doesn't have that kind of pull. In fact, he's only there because Bibi put these parties together. He doesn't have that force of personality. Nobody can make that happen. So Ra'am is going to have to join the coalition or at least support it from the outside. So if Smotrich wants to sit in government, he's going to have to accept that. And Bibi has put that out there by saying, look, if he doesn't want to join the government, he doesn't have to join the government. But the only way that this coalition is going to happen, the only way we're going to get to a majority, we can do the math. We can add. We really can. And when we sum to 59, and that's not 61 plus, we're going to need more seats. Okay, so this is Bibi's careful maneuvering there with Smotrich. Smotrich is going to have to back down on that. It's going to be embarrassing for him because he's already staked out that position. So it's going to be seen as very much as him backing down. Bibi's going to be the silverback gorilla, and Smotrich is going to have to back down and be like, I'm the lesser dog. I'm not alpha here. If he wants to join the coalition, have a cabinet seat, and be a big shot, be in the cabinet meetings. We'll see what happens there. But if I were Smotrich, I'd be looking to make a good deal and not keep myself out of the government. So finally, will Ra'am join the coalition or prop it up from the outside? What are the prospects for this? So let's just say that sometime this week, Bibi makes an announcement that he and Bennett have come to some kind of accord. They've reached an agreement. They've got their rotation worked out. They have all the other I's and T's dotted and topped, and they're ready to go. They just need Smotrich and his religious Zionists to get them up to the 59, and then they need to talk to Mansour Abbas and Ra'am. So let's say somehow Smotrich is cowed into joining that, and we're there. We're at 59 seats. Bibi is 2 seats away from a majority, and there's Ra'am out there with their 4 seats. Bibi has worked closely with Mansour Abbas on Arab-related issues related to the Israeli Arab community before, and now is the question, could he formally join the government? As I've described before, Mansour Abbas wants to be the guy who is seen by the Arabs as improving their conditions. And so he's done what he can to play somewhat nicer with the Jewish Israeli parties so that he can conceivably do that. And this door was opened by peace with the United Arab Emirates. Now that Israel and the Arab governments slowly but surely are making peace, there are rumors every day that the Saudis and the Israelis are going to come to some kind of Mensch-Kight, some kind of agreement for normalization soon. We will see. Okay, I don't know exactly when that might happen, but there's talk of it because the Saudis want protection from Iran, and they know that if all the Arab governments stand together with Israel, they have protection against Iran. So Ra'am joining the government from the national security point of view is very positive because they likewise oppose Iran. They are friendly with the United Arab Emirates. They're all kind of on the same page here, and we're good there. In terms of domestic politics, Abbas seems to be more focused on domestic issues, on improving the education system in the Arab communities, improving the economy, fighting organized crime. It doesn't seem that he wants to interject himself into Israeli domestic politics. So there's some talk that's been going around in Israel about, look, if Ra'am accepts Israel's right to exist and accepts that Israel is a Jewish democratic state, why not let them join the coalition, right? Arab Israelis have rights and opinions, and they have a right to be there. And honestly, a lot of Israeli Arabs do actually vote for Likud, as I've described. That surprises some people. The Bedouins in particular vote for Likud because they want that strong security situation. Israel is a country that they love because Israel is fair to the Bedouins, unlike the surrounding Arab countries that are not so kind to the Bedouins. So what'll happen here? It's not clear. but it would be possible for Abbas to be an informal, silent partner, right? So they have a vote to establish the government, and his party votes for Bibi, giving Bibi 63 votes, and thus a majority, without actually formally joining the coalition. Or he can sit down with Bibi and hammer out a coalition agreement where he would get a cabinet spot somewhere, a minister without portfolio, perhaps, or a low-ranking ministry. They could create a new ministry of Arab-Israeli affairs, or focus attention directly on that community. And that would put Mansour Abbas, no relation to Mahmoud Abbas, by the way, that would put him in a very strong position and a very visible position in the Arab community, which is good for him as a politician, personally, right? That's his goal. He wants to be the hero of the Arabs, okay? And he's in a good position to do that. So, will that happen? It could. And honestly, I would have to say, I mean, just by the fact of joining the coalition or even supporting the coalition, Ra'am would be making a tacit and de facto acknowledgement that Israel is a Jewish democratic state that has a right to exist, right? It doesn't need to be said necessarily. The fact that they're joining a coalition after democratic elections with Jewish political parties in Israel, a state which they then are kind of acknowledging exists and has a right to exist, that's it. I mean, it's kind of done there. It doesn't even necessarily have to be said out loud. And so everyone's pride will remain and everyone saves face. So that is a possibility. It's an exciting possibility, right? So I wanted to, as I tell you guys, I try to be objective and honest with you guys as much as I can. I have my own biases. And I thought, well, in claiming my biases, I should say, well, what do I want to see? What would Isaac's ultimate coalition be? And I thought that'd be an interesting thought exercise for you. Obviously, my ideal coalition would not involve any of the ultra-Orthodox parties because I'm not a great fan of theirs. But I would prefer one that could focus on Israel's social issues. They have a lot of problems in Israel, especially with the prospect of integration, creating this sort of pan-Israeli or greater Israeli culture that includes not just secular Jews, but religious Jews, the Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox, that includes the Israeli Arabs, the Ethiopians, the Russian Jews, all of these people who live in Israel, and kind of collects them into one larger culture that can then be, one country. We've got basically the last big migration of people to Israel now. There's not likely to be any big migration, probably a long, smaller migration of Jews to Israel from the West. But, that it's time to integrate. It's time to bring everyone together. So in my perfect world, if everybody were on a conference call and President Rivlin calls me up and this conference call and he says, Isaac, what should we do? Tell us what to do. Hey, a man can dream, right? So, I'll tell them this, right? I would like to see, in a perfect world, Netanyahu and Lapid work it out. I know Lapid is an opponent of his, and he's frothing at the mouth about how, Bibi's destroying democracy in Israel and all that kind of thing. But a center-left party, populist party, would break up the far-right nature of the coalition, afford Bibi greater flexibility of policymaking, and temper the right-wing nature of the coalitions. That would be something I would like to see, along with Yamina, along with maybe Gidon Sa'ar as well, because I don't have anything against him. He turned on Bibi. I didn't think he really had it in him to be prime minister, but he has some good ideas that are worth entertaining. And then, of course, Ra'am. And the why there is pretty obvious. I don't have a bias against Israeli Arabs or against Arabs in general. Rather fond of Arab culture, actually, in some ways. And as much as one can be, I'm not a great fan of the Islamist ideology. Islamic political Islam, militant Islam is not a good thing. But Ra'am doesn't really represent that precisely. Obviously, this is not Islamic State we're talking about. This is a political party in a democratic country that has Islamist roots, and therefore it shares the kind of social conservatism that is common among, say, even the Israeli right. So I would like to see them in the coalition as well, because I think that it's time that they join the government and cease to be just troublemakers in the Knesset who don't actually participate but just say all kinds of nasty things about Israel and oppose Israel's existence. So that's what I'd like to see. In the past, it has been a challenge because the only governments that they could conceivably possibly consider joining would be far-left governments. There was some hints or thoughts that maybe Balad or one of the other Arab parties might recommend Ehud Barak in the 1999 election after he won that election because there was the possibility of a finalized peace deal with the Palestinians. But that was just a rumor. It was just talk. It never came to fruition. And this is a chance to bring something to life. Back in the 1930s, before his death, the right-wing Israeli founder, Ze'ev Jabotinsky, dreamed of an Israel that was Zionist. It was Jewish, but secular, largely secular, that was free market and capitalist, and an entrepreneurial state where Jews could really let our stretch our wings, spread our wings and fly, really excel at the things that we are really good at. And that would be as much a home to the Arabs who lived in Israel as it is to the Jews who lived in Israel. He even thought of a rotation between Jewish and Arab prime ministers, possibly. This was his dream. This was his dream of a free, strong, because he was somewhat militant, a free, strong, secure, prosperous, entrepreneurial, and integrated Israel. That dream was kind of squashed early on because, of course, the Arabs went to war with Israel. All of their neighbors, a lot of the Arabs who lived in Israel left. Many of them had come there in the first place. It's a story for another time. Anyway, they left and became refugees and all this kind of thing. And it's been somewhat toxic. It's been a problem since then. All this fighting and enmity between the two groups. And Israel became a socialist country until the 70s and 80s when Israel slowly moved into the free market realm. Well, now Israel is that prosperous entrepreneurial country, and now it's possible that the Arabs will join the government. And so we're really, as we're on the verge of Israeli Independence Day, Yom HaAtzmaut, the Day of Independence that's coming up, also happens to be my birthday on the Jewish calendar, so happy birthday to me. I'm not looking forward to the next year because I'm getting considerably older, but I guess it happens to the best of us. In any case, Israel is getting older as well. And so as Israel has existed for over 7 decades, we're at the 75th anniversary of Israel's founding, it's entirely possible now that Ze'ev Jabotinsky's dream will come true. And Israel will become the country he and before him, Theodor Herzl, the founder of Zionism, modern Zionism, that they envisioned. And I have to say, it's a little bit emotional. There's a certain awe I feel about the prospect because it could really fulfill that dream. As the Israeli national anthem says, the hope of 2,000 years. This could really be the start of a great thing. It might not be. We've had these kinds of hopes and dreams before, and they've been squashed before. But who knows? But let's just say the prospect is positive. Israel is very close to it. In any case, I intend to create a special Yom HaAtzmaut supplemental episode. I'll play and translate for you the national anthem and talk a little bit about what Israel means to Jewish people and what Israel means to me. And I may share some stories also from Israel's War of Independence, which was a great tragedy and one heck of a fight, but Israel prevailed. So with that, I will say visit the website, insideisrael.news. Check out the Facebook page, like if you have not already liked, and subscribe to the podcast and follow for more episodes. So I will say goodbye, להתראות.
אולי נפליגה בספינות מחוף אילת עד חוף שלהם ועל המשחטות הישנות יטעינו תפוחי זהב כל זה אינו משל ולא חלום זה נכון כאור בצהריים